send it only to those addresses. So we will have the draw at after the last talk, and we will remind everybody again in the midstream. No, okay. So Wilson.
Good morning, everyone. We will be starting in a few seconds. Good morning. I will start now. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Welcome to Pandesal Forum here at 84-year-old Kamoning Bakery Cafe. We have this is co-organized with Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies, led by Mr. Herman Laurel here, President. And we have a very distinguished group of panelists, speakers, analysts here to talk about very important issues. The topic of our discussions this morning, ang ginawa nilang title is Basis of Insecurity and the Taiwan Question. I think they are referring to the controversial EDCA military bases and our neighbor Taiwan Island, which has figured recently in recent news. Among our speakers here, we have ang mga speakers natin dito. I will introduce them more extensively later. I will just mention their names now. Beside me is former Senator Francisco Tatad, and then beside him, Ms. Sass Rogando Sasot, and next is Mr. Ado Paglinawan, and via Zoom, joining us, Professor Ana Malindog Uy. Yes, I will now call each one and invite each of them to give us their opening statement. We like to request the opening statement to be around 10 minutes because we already have a lot of questions. Ngayon pa lang, we have a lot of questions. We could adjust naman kung mahaba, okay lang. The first speaker is former Senator Francisco Tatad. He's from Catanduanes Province, Bicol Region. He was in the 1969, many people may not know, Senator Tatad in 1969, di pa pinanganak si Ms. Sasot at that time. He was 29 years old when he was appointed by then President Ferdinand Edelin Marcos as the youngest cabinet minister. He was appointed as Minister of Public Information. And not only that distinguished him, he is also former Senate Majority Floor Leader, outstanding, enlightened legislator, not only in the Philippine Senate, but he also won election and served as legislator in the former Batasang Pambansa. Now, he is a respected public intellectual and a columnist in the Manila Times newspaper. Let us welcome former Senator Tatad for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Wilson. I'm so happy to be back here. The last time I was here was before the fire raced down the building. I recall enjoying every moment of the time I was here. I'm so happy to see that the Pandesal Forum has grown. It has remained uninterrupted in its advocacy and activities. The topic is important to me and to us because it concerns the survival of our nation. In fact, not only of our nation, because what is being threatened by the parties is a global war, perhaps, where no one might survive if it takes place. So it's very important for us to understand what we have done as a government and what we are doing either to prevent this calamity from taking place or to hasten its arrival in our country. Aside from what has been mentioned by Wilson, so I understand all the agreements that we entered into in order to safeguard our security and national interest. At this point in our history, I cannot say we are safeguarding our national security and our national interest. I served a very talented, very purposeful president for at least 10 years of my early life. It was a controversial presidency, but on the whole, I think Marcos did well by the Filipino people. He fought for our rights and our interests. I'm sorry, I'm unable to say the same thing of the present administration. You know, and the issue of EDCA, for instance, it is very clear in our Constitution. Section 25 of Article 8. Did I get it right? Is it Article 8? No. 18. Yeah. Article 18 says that after the expiration in 1991 of the agreement concerning military bases, foreign military bases, troops, and facilities, let us remember those words, no? Shall not be allowed in the Philippines, except under a treaty duly concurred in by the Senate, and if Congress so requires, ratified by majority of the votes cast by the people in a national referendum held for that purpose, and considered a treaty by the other contracting state. Napakalinaw po ng provision ng Constitution. And the Constitution is not something that you trifle with. It is, yan ang ina ng lahat ng batas natin, no? Napakalinaw, hindi maaari after 1991 magkaroon ng base militar or foreign troops or facilities in the Philippines, on Philippine soil, na hindi dumadaan sa tratado na pinasa ng Senado. Now, what do we have today? We have, they are not called bases, but they function as such. Except by name, they are bases, no? And they're on Philippine soil. So it violates the provision on extraterritoriality. Binigyan natin ng kapangyarihan ng Amerika na manirahan sa ating estado against the Constitution and the basic law of nations. At ngayon, by creating the EDCA sites where we can preposition U.S. forces, troops, and facilities, we have joined the U.S. in its preparation for war against China. E paano tayo nakarating doon? May mga problema tayo sa China, but we are not enemies. We are not declared enemies. But by creating the EDCA sites, we have joined the U.S. in its war preparations against China. So kung gaganti ang China, they are not the ones provoking us. They're the ones responding to our provocation. Well, why have we gone this far? For what reason? Meron bang consultation sa bayan? Have we seen any National Security Council studying this issue and discussing? Wala. So, ayun ang tinignan ko na before we go deeper into this mess, let us call on our leaders. Pag-usapan itong issue ito, to review, revisit everything. Para makita kung saan sila nagkamali, kung paano nang iwawasto ito. Oh, hindi pa huli. Hindi pa tayo nagkakaputukan eh. So, pwede pa na manawagan yung Pangulo, na upuan yung National Security Council niya, even yung kanyang cabinet. I don't think the cabinet has discussed this, no? Oh, you know, in a system, yung cabinet, importante yan. Hindi lang sa parliamentary system na importante yung cabinet. Dito, cabinet. Pero ano bang cabinet ang nakikita natin? Yung cabinet, meron niyang primus inter pares. Normally is the foreign minister. Hindi natin nakikita yung foreign minister heading the cabinet and discussing cabinet issues. So, okay. Baka humaba ito. So, salamat, Wilson. I go back to it later.
Thank you very much for your analysis, former Senator Kit Tatad, for the opening statement. Let us next welcome a very respected and fearless analyst, foreign policy expert, Ms. Sass Rogando Sasot. She studied, she's an academic expert also, graduated from Open University of Hong Kong with BA in Business Administration in Human Resource Management. Also, a master's degree International Relations from Leiden University, and her BA combined major in World Politics and Global Justice, minor in International Development, magna cum laude from Leiden University College in the Netherlands. Let us welcome the brilliant analyst, Ms. Sass Rogando Sasot, for her opening statement.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Can I have my presentation, please? So, ang aking presentation for today is about challenging the selling point of U.S. military presence in our country. Okay, so can I have it full screen? Pwede ba i-full screen siya? Okay, so this is about deterrence. Okay, so I'm going to demystify this term na parating binabanggit in mainstream media, even by our government officials. So the argument is U.S. military presence is a deterrent in our country, is a deterrent to whoever. Okay. Sometimes they don't really say who is a deterrent for, but we all know that they are thinking about China. Diba? Hindi naman siguro Malaysia or Vietnam, you know. It's always, they're always saying that it's for deterrence. Yan na yung full, Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so I think everyone knows Richard Heydarian. He's a resident, I think he's still a resident analyst of GMA7. And I think he's a professor in or a lecturer of international relations or geopolitics in UP, at UP Diliman. And this was a conversation on Twitter between Richard Heydarian and Teddy Casino. So Teddy Casino, this was on April 10, 2023. Of course, Teddy Casino is from Bayan Muna, no? There always been anti-imperialism and U.S. military presence in the country. So Teddy Casino tweeted about, Marcos is fooling himself in the country. EDCA agreed locations are U.S. forward bases with preposition. We know the argument. And then Richard Heydarian responded. He said, but heard of quote-unquote deterrence. Next slide, please. And then Richard Heydarian continued on the Twitter thread, and then he said, status quo, China dominating the place inch by inch, building sprawling military facilities and depriving our fishermen of tons of catch every month. Want us to just quote-unquote, wait this out? Come on. We need to think outside hackneyed 1960s Cold War, quote-unquote, lefties box. It is 2023. So Richard Heydarian is very, he is the most visible foreign policy analyst on mainstream media. He appeared not just in local news, even in international news. He's actually the favored foreign policy analyst of the United States. Even though he admits it or not, he is. He gets to speak in think tanks in Washington, D.C. that are funded by U.S. defense. By the U.S. defense industry. So it's very important that we challenge Richard Heydarian. Lalo na siya yung pinapakinggan eh. And of course, everyone would listen to him. He is pleasant to look at compared to other analysts. Diba? He speaks well, mukhang mabango, etc. Pero what is he talking about? So we have to unpack this. Can I have the next slide, please? So let me just challenge what he's saying, that China is dominating the place inch by inch. And that his argument is that U.S. military presence would deter China from dominating the place inch by inch. So this is the map of Kalayaan Island Group. I actually took a picture of this map na ibinigay sa akin ng isang government official last year during my birthday. No, it was already a year ago. It was, ayaw naman yung sabihin na siya yung nagbigay. But this is an official map. Okay? This is what they have in the military, etc. So this was Kalayaan Island Group. So I don't know if you can clearly see the flags. Okay? Those red flags there, majority of them ay hindi China. It's Vietnam. And Vietnam, okay, ano to? So if you can see the lines, the hexagon, that is based on the PD 1596 of former President Marcos, okay? PD 1596. So that's called the Kalayaan Island Group. So that hexagon line claims the Kalayaan Island Group, implies that we claim the Kalayaan Island Group as an archipelago. So PD 1596, President Marcos Sr. issued it in 1978. Pero Vietnam actually started occupying those features since 1973. Lalo na nung nagpahayag si President Marcos na, okay, we're gonna join the territorial contest. I think it was in 1971. So Vietnam kept on occupying. If you have time later, read the article, today's article of Rigoberto Tiglao in Manila Times. He would present the dates of when Vietnam occupied these features. So Vietnam is actually the dominant power in the West Philippine Sea, because the definition of the West Philippine Sea include the Kalayaan Island Group. Vietnam dominates the Kalayaan Island Group. So that's fact number one. And they did fact number two. Vietnam was able to dominate inch by inch, to use Richard Heydarian's word, the Kalayaan Island Group, when the United States still had a permanent base in the Philippines. And not just Vietnam, Taiwan, Republic of China, when the Kuomintang was still the government, still the recognized government of China as a whole, it was able to occupy Taiping Island in the 1950s. I think it was in 1958. And Taiping Island, or Ito Aba, is the largest island in Kalayaan Island Group. And of course, Malaysia also occupied features. 7, I think it was 7 or 4. So all those things happened when the United States still had a permanent base in Clark and Subic. All of that happened. So, paano ngayon? Ano ngayon yung basis na the United States can deter? And they were able to do that when the United States still had permanent military bases in the country. So, mali na kagad dun sa Heydarian. The empirical fact doesn't support Richard Heydarian. Can I have the next slide, please? So he asked, but heard of deterrence? Well, maybe for the lay person, they would be impressed by the use of the word deterrence. But, for scholars of international relations like me and others, we would question you, what do you mean by deterrence? And do you actually know the causal mechanism that makes deterrent effective? Can I have the next slide, please? So this is the causal mechanism of deterrence, okay? So a lot of people just use the word deterrence based on its dictionary meaning. Deterrence simply means, for a layperson, that you can prevent another actor from doing something. That's deterrence for a layperson. But for those who studied international relations, that's not everything about deterrence. Okay? For deterrence to work, there are two things that must be present, or two things that work together. Okay? So one, you must have a credible threat. Okay? Credible threat, ibig sabihin, I will punish you if you do something that I don't want you to do. So that's military. Okay, weapons, etc. Or sanctions, etc. Anything that could force them not to do something out of fear of punishment. So one operates based on fear. The other one is credible assurance. What's credible assurance? That if the other actor will not do something that you don't want them to do, you will not take advantage of them. So that's credible assurance. Okay. So ngayon, we are examining our situation as if we are the deterror state. Tayo yung deterror. And China is the target. But when you look at this objectively, especially if you see that the situation is a territorial dispute, the identity of who is the deterror or the target states got conflated. So ikaw, i-deter mo yung China, what do you expect China to do? They will also deter you. So ang mangyayari, you will now stimulate what we call in international relations the security dilemma. Okay? It would lead to arms race. And then eventually, if it escalated to a point na punong-puno na ng tension, especially if you let the military solution take precedence over everything else, then it could lead to war. Now, another important aspect about deterrence is the more you rely on credible threat, yung credible assurance na apektuhan. Okay? Because you're gonna use threat. Okay. Then hindi na kita pagkakatiwalaan. But if you improve on credible assurance, the more you improve it in the long term, you will no longer need to use threat in order to deter. So what do you do in order to improve credible assurance? This is peace building, you know. This is, you include confidence building measure. You improve, you resolve the trust deficit between you and the other party, so between the Philippines and China. And it takes years to do that. But you will not be able to do that if you keep on demonizing China. Okay? So we would tell na, okay, diplomats, go to China and improve our trust with each other. Pero while in the Philippines, you keep on demonizing China. Hindi mo pagkakatiwalaan yung China. If you can see the mainstream media, di ba? And everyone who's commenting on this, especially those related to Albert Del Rosario Institute, not strat-based, let's just name names. They're always saying that, hindi pagkakatiwalaan, hindi po pwede, it failed. And then you expect na yung diplomats mo na isisend mo sa China in order to improve trust with each other, in order for you to improve your relation, and therefore you don't need to resort to threats anymore in order to deter each other from doing something. E paano magiging acceptable sa mga tao yung ginagawa ng mga diplomat na pinapadala mo sa China if here you're already conditioning the people na wala, hindi po pwede na makipag-usap tayo sa China. And often the excuse is that negotiations do not work. But the thing is, nobody ever even asked, were there really negotiations? There was none. All they're saying is, we have sent note verbals 200 times. But I have yet to see any definition of negotiation that ended with note verbal. You know, note verbal is simply stating your claim or your complaint, but that's not negotiation. You know, an ordinary person could be fooled, and that's what they have been doing all throughout these years. That note verbal equals negotiation. That's not true. That's simply a lie, and deliberate lie. Because if you go through the evidence presented by the Philippines in the South China Sea arbitration, it's available online, there were no negotiations conducted. And I have actually talked before to the late Ambassador Alberto Encomienda, who headed the DFA's Ocean Maritime Affairs Division, and he told me, and even in the forum before, in public, he said that there were no negotiations. He was there. He never saw any negotiations. And he said that those who are claiming that there were negotiations should present at least the progress reports of this negotiation when it happened. But no one is presenting that evidence because there's none. So if we apply this to our current situation, like for example, can we go to the next slide, please? So how about the Taiwan question? Okay. A lot of people do not understand what it entails in order for there to be peace when it involves Taiwan. They always thinking about, China should be deterred from militarily occupying or using military action over Taiwan. But nobody's asking, why would Beijing use its military in order to unify Taipei to Beijing? What would lead Beijing to think in those terms? One is to think that Beijing is stupid. Hello, my God. Beijing is a government of 1.6 billion people, lifted 800 million people out of poverty in just one lifetime. I don't think that suggests that Beijing is stupid. Second is they're going to say that, because China is going to be aggressor, etc., because it's a communist country, etc. Well, in the mid-90s, when Jiang Zemin the unification proposal with Jiang Zemin in the mid-90s involved that Taiwan could keep its military, its armed forces, if in case unification happened. Where in the world would you see a country allowing what it considers as a secessionist territory that they would allow them to keep their army? We don't even allow MILF to MNLF to keep their army, no? Disarmament is a condition for for MILF or MNLF in order for peace talks to happen. But we don't see this in China. So if you keep on asking questions, you would realize that the bottom line is xenophobic lang talaga kayo. You're just like anti-China for racist reason. Okay, so how would peace happen in concerning the Taiwan question if we're gonna use the concept of deterrence? Well, you have to deter three parties. You know, deterrence has to work. Three parties in this issue. One is Taipei. You have to deter Taipei from declaring formal independence. Why? Because that would lead China or Beijing to send its military force to Taiwan to assert territorial control. And that's just logical. If Mindanao suddenly declare formal independence, you would be stupid to say that Manila will not send the AFP to Mindanao in order to assert territorial control. That's just like logical. So now, when it comes to Beijing, we need to deter Beijing from using military force in order to unify Taipei to Beijing. But we know that Beijing will only use military force to unify Taipei to Beijing if Taipei declares formal independence. And now here comes the Washington, D.C. Do we need to deter Washington, D.C.? Of course. Because war would happen, a greater war would happen if the United States intervene in the internal affairs of China. Right? So let's say that Taipei declare independence and then Beijing sent its military to assert territorial control. Now, if Washington, D.C. intervened, then that would be a bigger conflagration. But there's another thing that we should deter Washington, D.C. from doing. And that is from launching a preventive war against Beijing. So what's a preventive war? I think a lot of you are already like, at least teenagers or reasonable adult in 2003. Bush used the Bush Doctrine, famous Bush Doctrine says that the United States has the right to use preventive war against a country that it sees as a threat to its interest. Okay? So, hindi lang ito preemptive strike, Preventive. Yung preemptive kasi, meron ng imminent threat. Nandyan na, may missiles. It's, the other party would like to launch a war against you. But preventive war, nai-imagine mo pa lang na pwedeng mangyari in the future, therefore you're gonna launch a war. And that happened in Iraq. That's the basis of the United States. And of course, you would like to deter the United States as well from keep on provoking Taipei to declare formal independence. So that's how delicate the situation is. Pero we are only focusing on China. Oh, we need to deter China from launching a military action against Taipei. But nobody's asking why. Why would China use military force against Taipei when in fact they have been trading peacefully for so many decades? Beijing is the #1 trade partner of Taipei. So why all of a sudden they're gonna destroy that economic relations? Either the only explanation is either Beijing is stupid to destroy it. But that's an assumption that is untenable. Can we go to the next slide? At masyado nang mahaba yung oras ko. So another area na sinasabi ng magde-deter is dito sa West Philippine Sea na tinatawag natin. Okay? The truth of the matter is we don't have any strategy in West Philippine Sea. Okay? None. Because in order for you to have a strategy, you have to have an end goal. What is actually your end? Ang lumalabas ngayon na end goal natin is for China to leave West Philippine Sea. Okay, Czechsit. Yan yung tawag nila nung 2016. No? Czechsit campaign. Okay. But we know that hindi lang China ang ka-territorial dispute natin. Republic of China rin. No? PRC, ROC, Malaysia, Vietnam. So, if we're gonna see, if we say, okay, China, PRC, leave. And then China said, yes, okay, we will leave. What do you think Vietnam and Malaysia or Republic of China would do? Smile to the Philippines and say, okay, they're yours, Philippines. Well, there's only one way to deter them, Vietnam or Malaysia or Taiwan, Republic of China, from occupying what China would leave. And that is for the United States to guarantee by force that other claimants will not occupy. So, if we get that guarantee from the United States that it would use force if Vietnam or Malaysia or Taiwan would occupy what China would leave, asa na yun? Then US declares war with other claimants if they give that guarantee. Now, if they don't give that guarantee, other claimants will occupy. So that is the end of that leave WPS strategy that we have for China. But I don't know, maybe in some other place, in some of their imagination, they think that this would end well for the Philippines. And I think that's what they're thinking. And I think we need to challenge that a lot because I think they're living in fantasy land. I don't know, maybe they're high or whatever, no? Di ba, Pantasya? To conclude, empirical evidence say that the presence of US military, can we have the next slide? Meron pa pala ako, I'm so sorry. So ang sabi nila, di ba, madedeter, mawawala ng conflict. Okay. So this is a study by RAND. Okay, RAND Corporation. It's a think tank funded by US military defense industry. And there is a study released in 2018 on US presence and the incidence of conflict. So this was commissioned by the Deputy Chief of Staff for Intelligence of the United States Army, 2018. So what does this study say? Next slide. So based on data from 1951 to 2007, US troop presence near initiator states actually increased the risk of low-intensity conflict. Ibig sabihin, pag ang US troops ay malapit doon sa initiator state refers to whoever they thought is an aggressor, tumataas ang risk ng low-intensity military conflict. Low-intensity military conflict is just, swaggering, forced deployment, etc. Next slide. So, and they also found out that there is a risk of high interstate military conflict initiated by the adversary state kung merong US troop presence na nandoon sa target state ng aggressor. So tayo, feeling natin, tayo yung target state ng aggressor ng China. Empirical studies say na lalo tumataas yung chance that whoever we think as an aggressor, mag-initiate ng war. That's a high-intensity conflict is. And then another important finding they have, next slide please, is that the presence of US troop actually increases the risk that United States will initiate the war against the other country. So this is an empirical study conducted by a think tank commissioned by the US military. This is not from the left. This is not from against the United States. If there is any think tank that is more pro-US interest, it is RAND. And of course, the US military itself. So this is what empirical data show. That there would be an increased chance of war with increased US military presence. So is deterrence, will deterrence gonna happen? Well, based on empirical data, most probably not. Because what exactly do you want to deter? What you want to deter is for war to happen. And empirical data show that it is not promising. It's not a promising policy. So ang tanong ngayon, ano ngayon yung basehan nila na it would work? When study shows na it won't. So until that they provide empirical data that would support their policies na magiging successful ito, then they're resting on fantasy. And we don't want to gamble the survival of our country on someone's fantasy. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the very brilliant, enlightening Sass, Rogando, Sasot. Next, we'd like to invite for opening statement, journalist, TV radio host, book author, former Philippine diplomat based in Washington, D.C., Mr. Ado Paglinawan for his opening statement of 10 minutes or less. Thank you.
I am revising my opening statement to accommodate a question by Rod Cornejo, Asian Institute of Journalism and Communication. What is America's real motive for its sudden focus in Taiwan and expansion of EDCA in the Philippines? And this connects very well with Sass Rogando Sasot's presentation. You know, ladies and gentlemen, since 2014, China has carried out several tests of its hypersonic glide vehicle, HGV. The HGV, the DFZF, can be configured to carry a nuclear or conventional warhead, and China claims it is precise enough, traveling 10 times the speed of sound, Mach 10, to attack ships at sea, thereby earning the title of ship killer. By the way, China also has an intercontinental ballistic missile, DF-26, that is capable of striking Guam, therefore the nickname Guam Killer by Chinese media. Currently, The DFCF is carried by a DF-17 HGV armed medium-range ballistic missile, which was fielded in 2020. China continues to develop its hypersonic weapon technology with the testing of an ICBM range DF-2F that traveled 40,000 kilometers in July 2021, flying around the world and barely missing a target back to where it was launched in the Gobi Desert of China. 40,000 kilometers. On August 4, 2022, China began a 3-day exercise in which they launched 11 ballistic missiles. This came after Pelosi visited Taiwan against the multiple threats from Chinese leadership. Recently, one leaked Pentagon intelligence document obtained by Navy Times showed Beijing tested a hypersonic missile that could hit targets beyond Japan and the U.S. territory of Guam and carry a high probability of besting American ballistic missile defenses. Quote, Beijing's February test saw the DF-27 covered 2,100 kilometers in just 12 minutes. The Pentagon believes that the land attack and anti-ship variants have already been deployed, as its own assessments have warned of even longer DF-27 ranges. What does the United States have? This is significant because breaking defense echoed an earlier Bloomberg expose from Air Force Acquisition Chief Andrew Hunter in a written statement to the House Armed Services Tactical Air and Land Forces Subcommittee. After a rocky development and recent failed test, which is the second, the U.S. Air Force has decided it will not go on to buy the hypersonic air-launched rapid response weapon, ARRO, or now the Broken Arrow. Ladies and gentlemen, let us go to reality. Barely 20 years from the Third Taiwan Straits crisis, the September 1, 2020 U.S. Department of Defense. I am quoting official statements here by the American government. A report to Congress speaks of a China developing a military by mid-century that is equal to, or in some cases already superior to, the U.S. The PRC has marshaled the resources, technology, and political will over the past 2 decades to strengthen and modernize the PLA in nearby every respect. Indeed, as the report showed, China is already ahead of the U.S. in certain areas. Number one, shipbuilding. The PRC has the largest navy in the world. China has the largest navy in the world, with an overall battle force of approximately 350 ships, including over 130 major surface combatants. In comparison, the U.S. Navy's battle force is approximately 293 ships as of early 2020. Number two, land-based conventional ballistic cruise missiles. Please pay attention to this. The PRC has more than 1,250 ground-launched ballistic missiles and ground-launched cruise missiles with ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. This is land-based. How many does the U.S. have? The U.S. currently fields one type of conventional ground-launched ballistic missile with a range of 70 to 300 kilometers and no ground cruise missiles. The only thing they have was HIMARS. So where is the deterrence there? Pang-literal lang yan in case may atake sa shores mo. Eh kung wala naman maglalanding, anong deterrent mo? Number 3, Integrated Air Defense System. The PRC has one of the world's largest forces of advanced long-range surface-to-air systems, including Russian-built S-400s and S-300s, and domestically produced systems that constitute part of its robust and redundant integrated air defense systems architecture. What does this mean? This means China can intercept any approaching threat by air or water, even without launching a single ship or aircraft. Reality check.
Thank you. Thank you.
The scenario is very different from when Bill Clinton sent 2 aircraft carrier groups, the Nimitz and Independence, to de-escalate the third Taiwan crisis of 1995 and 1996. Today, when China so decides, no ship or any surface platform can stand between its mainland and Guam, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea included. So what has President Marcos Jr.'s repositioning of 4 additional and 5 original EDCA bases done to help the security of our country? No. Ano ang gustong mangyari ng US? Yun ang tanong. Sagutin natin. Notice that the US is very particular about improving airstrips more than anything else and has prioritized on locations that juts out to South China Sea and Taiwan. This is why in the recent Balikatan exercises, unwittingly for most of us, they were already testing their F-22 Raptors and F-35 Lightnings. Their intention is to make Northern Luzon and Palawan aircraft carriers shielded by a third independent country, the Philippines. Why? Because of the 12-minute factor. They cannot launch anything within 12 minutes from anywhere. No ship, no submarine, no aircraft carrier can come near Taiwan. So let us not mince words here. EDCA bases are American bases. Unlike the defense cooperation DCAs Bulgaria, Romania, and Australia signed with the US, we have no say on what the Americans can do with these bases. There are exclusion clauses on paper, but US does not have to seek permission or even inform us of what they can position there. It means that these EDCA bases, when populated especially by US aircrafts and offensive weaponry that they carry, including nuclear weapons, can trigger the Caroline Principle, justifying a preemptive attack by China on any of the EDCA bases. Only idiots deny there is war in the horizon. And because we have allowed the fifth column inside our territory, sinabi ni Sass, the probability of war is where the US is positioning its military presence. How do we deter? Not China now, that the US is inside our jurisdiction from starting this war. Yan ang dapat tanungin natin. Where can anybody hide? It is sad, but Bongbong Marcos has placed his own country in extreme harm's way with extreme prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ado Pagdinawan. Last but not the least, we have Professor Ana Malindog Uy, Vice President for Internal Affairs, Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies, cum laude graduate political science of University of the Philippines, and now finishing her doctorate degree in economics from Asia's prestigious Peking University. Let us welcome for opening statement, Professor Ana Malindog Uy.
Thank you, Wilson. Can I be heard?
Via Zoom.
Oo, via Zoom ako.
Let us adjust the sound, please.
Oo, naririnig ba?
Naka-mute yata si Professor.
Hindi.
Yan.
Hindi na, okay na. Hindi na.
Yan, we can hear you.
Okay, great. On my side,
Welcome.
thank you so much. And thank you as well to our panel of speakers. They have explained very well, no, the different issues that has something to do with EDCA and even on the Taiwan question. Thank you as well for our participants and also sa media na nag-attend ng ating media forum. On my side, I'll be very short about my opening statement, but I will emphasize more on the Taiwan question. No? As to the Taiwan question, we need to remember as a country that there's such a thing as there's only one China in the world, and Taiwan is an integral part of China's territory. That's why we have what you call the one China policy. The Taiwan question is at the heart of China's core interests. What does it mean? It means that the Taiwan issue is a non-negotiable issue for China. So that is something that any country who has any country that has what you call official diplomatic ties with the Republic, People's Republic of China should be should be careful about these things. And I think if you adhere to the one China policy, you have to be true to it. So it means you have to respect that. And given that Taiwan is a very important question for China, and it's a very important core interest of China, and it's a non-negotiable, we should not play with fire. Okay, that's very important. I think especially for government officials of the country. And recently, we know, every one of us know, and even the media also know, that, you know, si Senator Hontiveros visited Taiwan. I think we need to draw lesson from that. And for me, really, we should not play with fire. This is not something that, you know, we can just make a joke. No, this is not. Because for China, this is really an important issue. Probably the South China Sea can be a negotiable thing for China. Probably, we don't know. But I think that my reading is like that they can probably negotiate, you know, come up with a middle ground when you talk about the South China Sea issue. But with the Taiwan question, it is not negotiable for them. So that is a reminder to our government officials, and especially this administration, to take note of. No? Ayaw natin na masali sa issue ng Taiwan, precisely because we always say, even the official stand of the government, na we adhere and we respect the one China policy. So I think we need to be very true to that. And wag na nating laruin yan. At on the other hand, kaya rin nagiging importante yung EDCA issue, precisely because if you look at the additional EDCA sites, it's all, the three of them is in the north, facing Taiwan. So ang tanong lang natin lagi dito is, why, sa laki ng bansa ng, ay hindi naman ganun kalaki ang Pilipinas, pero sa dami naman ng areas, bakit doon? Kaya nagiging issue din ang EDCA. And to a greater extent because of these things. At hindi naman rocket science yan na hindi ma-figure out ng China and even natin, mga Pilipino, kung ano talaga ang reasons and motive behind EDCA, especially the additional EDCA sites. Na kanina, malinaw naman din in-explain ng ibang panel of speakers. So yun dapat siguro isa sa mga reminders na sa ating mga Pilipino at syempre sa ating gobyerno, especially the current government, which you really look at the foreign policy of the current administration, is really leaning to the United States. We should not, wag na nating eme-eme na hindi yun. Kasi yun talaga yun. So yun. Kaya nga tayo nag-media forum, precisely because we need to clarify issues, and we also want the current administration to listen to other voices outside of, the circle of the president. So I think this is very important. And one thing also that I want to emphasize when you talk about the one China policy, there is a prevailing consensus among the international community and a basic norm in international relation affirmed in Resolution 2758 of the UN General Assembly. The Taiwan independence is not possible because it is indeed an integral part of China. So itong mga issue ng Taiwan independence and so things like that. As a country, we should be very careful entertaining this. Especially our government official, no, wag na nating laruin yan, at wag na tayo, let's not fuel the fire that is there already, kasi ano yan internal affairs yan ng China, and let them resolve their own internal affairs, whatever it is that they need to resolve as as a country. So yun yung isa sa mga pinaka-importanting I think point that I want to raise in this media forum on my side. And on the other hand, with the EDCA, I still would want to reiterate my stand. I'm against it, especially expanded EDCA. And I hope that the current government will rethink its policy, its foreign policy at this time. Kasi at the end of the day talaga, pag nagkagit-gita, kawawa talaga ang Pilipinas. That is not anymore a question. That is something that is beyond, it's in the horizon. If in any case something happen even in the South China Sea part or in the Taiwan Strait, ang Pilipinas ay matutupok po tayo. So we need to rethink, and we need to help this administration see things clearly. At wag lang makinig sa isang side, but look at every sides and look at every angles. We are here because we are trying to to help and at least offer an alternative perspective na meron ang current government. And I hope really that the current government will listen. Really, it's not because we're just wanna say something here. It's really for the country. And on that note, I would like to thank everyone. And I really hope that we will have very interesting questions, and we will try also to answer the questions. Thank you so much, and a pleasant morning to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ana Malindog-Uy. Yes. Paki-introduce yourself to all the panelists and the question. Thank you, Jason.
Hello po. I have questions for Ms. Sass and Senator Kit. By the way, Jason po ng SM9 News. Unahin ko muna po si Senator Kit. Sir, next year po ay magtatapos na yung EDCA by 2024.
Yes.
What should the government do? And if not, kung ipagpapatuloy ba o hindi, kung ipagpapatuloy, what will happen to us if magpapatuloy yung EDCA after mag-expire to sa 2024? And you have said na hindi pa hulihang lahat.
Well, unang-una, linawin natin, under the treaty, or under the executive agreement, yung EDCA has a 10-year period. After the 10-year period, if it is not terminated, it continues indefinitely.
Wow.
Yan ang
So,
dapat linawin natin.
Indefinitely. Wow.
Indefinitely. And unless you serve a 1-year notice to terminate. Yan ang malinaw dyan. So, wag tayong maliligaw at akalain natin na matatapos na. Hindi. Indefinite yung kwan.
Government should do something.
Kaya ang panawagan ko is for us to revisit. Dapat tingnan muli. Kasi in my non-lawyer's view, this is a violation of our Constitution. Napakalinaw ng Constitution. Hindi maaaring magkaroon ng base militar, troops and facilities except under a treaty concurred in by the Senate. Nasaan yung treaty ng Senado? Wala po yan. Ito executive agreement, may kapangyarihan ba ang Pangulo or the Defense Secretary to enter into this agreement? Wala po. At balikan po natin, tingnan ninyo yung dokumento mismo, yung EDCA agreement. April 28, 2014. Yung signature page, hindi nakasulat kung sino mga pumirma. Parang chicken scroll lang nandun. Tingnan ninyo. Nakahihiya. So embarrassing. Hindi nakalagay yung pangalan ni Gasmin at ni Philip Goldberg.
Yes.
Basta yung ganong initial.
Silang dalawa lang nag-sign.
Sila lang dalawa. So,
An ambassador and tapos not concurred by the US Senate and Philippines.
Executive agreement nga ito.
Executive agreement lang.
This is not a treaty.
And
it's supposed to have replaced a treaty. So walang provision sa Constitution that allows it. Kaya dapat magsama-sama tayo, hingin natin kay President Marcos Jr. na tingnan muli ito. Oo. It may be too late to change everything. But yun na punto de vista lang si Amerikano yun. We should not concur in that view na you cannot change it anymore. Kasi walang ang tinutungtungan na base sa Constitution.
Sir, what do you think what will happen po if magpapatuloy ito by 2024?
Alam ang problema, this is the game of superpowers. Halimbawa, mag-insist at hindi pumayag yung pero magpupumilit siya na baguhin ito, ay baka magkaroon ng regime change sa Pilipinas.
sabi ni Sass, ang EDCA baka maging EDSA daw.
Ayun. No, pero dapat ipakita natin mga Pilipino na for the first time nakasalalay ang our very lives dito. Yung mga buhay ng mga anak natin at mga iaanak ng mga anak natin. Dapat ipaglaban naman natin. Kailan pa tayo makikipaglaban? Kayong kabataan. You are in your 20s.
Sir, kung magpapatuloy ba, there will be a danger po? May danger po ba kung magpapatuloy itong EDCA by 2024?
It is the very definition of danger. Yung presensya ng EDCA ngayon. Kaya nasabi ko kanina na wala tayong, ang nag-aaway dito, hindi Pilipinas at Amerika o Pilipinas at China. Nag-aaway dito ang China at saka Amerika. Nakikisali lang tayo dito pero mukhang yung pinakamabigat na kargahin ay nasa balikat na natin. Mali! Di ba? Nakikisaw-saw lang tayo. So, sino may provocation? Tayo ba? O China? Lupa natin, tinamnan ng base militar na hindi tinatawag na base militar. Nandiyan nakaposisyon yung mga weaponry ng ang mga sundalo nila. At malinaw sinabi ni Austin kung para sa ano ito. Para sa China ito. We are not imagining things. Sinabi sa atin na ito, gagamitin namin ito para sa China over Taiwan. Yun ang issue. Ngayon, yung China at Taiwan, suriin lang natin sandali. Noong 1975, we entered into diplomatic relations with China. Okay? Tinanggap natin yung One China policy. Under which, yung kabuuan ng China kasama ang Taiwan dyan, nasa ilalim po ng pamahalaan ng People's Republic of China. Hindi lang tayo ang tumanggap niyan. Yung United Nations in Resolution 71, nung tinanggap nila ang People's Republic of China as a permanent member of the Security Council at pinababa nila ang Taiwan, ayan, malinaw yan. Buong UN. At yung Amerika, tinanggap din yan except they later adopted a so-called position of strategic ambiguity. Na okay, tinatanggap namin yan, pero pag gumawa kayo ng anuman para maging kabahagi ang Taiwan ng China, ay mananagot kayo sa amin militarily. Yan ang posisyon ng no? So, may contradiction doon sa tinatanggap namin yung One China policy at yung Taiwan ay bibigyan namin ng protection para sa atin. Yung ganong contradiction, hindi natin papayagan yan. Pero yung superpower, ibang salita. It's a superior form of law sa kanila, yung kanilang sinasabi. So, yun. Nandun ang panganib.
Thank you, sir. Last question for Miss Sass. Miss Sass, curious lang ako doon sa sa sinabi mo na Fantasyland. So para mas maintindihan po ng ating mga kababayang Pilipino, yung mga ordinaryong Pilipino, sino ba yung nagpapantasya? Ano ba yung pinapantasya nila? At bakit yung pantasya nila ay hanggang pantasya lang? And if I'm not mistaken, tama ba yung pagkakaintindi ko na yung tinutukoy niyo po na pantasya lang is yung EDCA ay maganda yung kinahinatnan? Thank you.
Well, binibenta ang EDCA dahil sinasabi ito ay deterrent. Well, I've just presented that it has never, US military presence in the Philippines has never been a deterrent. Vietnam was able to dominate Kalayaan Island Group. Actually, Kalayaan Island Group no longer exists. You know, as a group, it's, if you're gonna base on the number of features occupied, let's already forget about Kalayaan Island Group. It now belongs to Vietnam. It doesn't even belong to China. It belongs to Vietnam now. With 20 occupied features, as ikaw, ilan ka lang? Idalin mo to sa adjudication. Vietnam ang mananalo dyan with the number of, especially that Vietnam doesn't accept that Spratlys ay hindi archipelago. So, empirical data doesn't support the argument that US military bases will be a deterrent na hindi magkakaroon ng war. It is based on a 2008 study commissioned by the US military itself. So baka naman yung Malacanang meron silang ibang pinagbasihang empirical data. Maybe they could give it to us. No, because this is the existing study from RAND Corporation commissioned by the US military. So sino yung nagpapantasya? And then those people are selling us the idea that EDCA will be a deterrent. Yeah, exactly. Deterrent against what? You know, another idea is that China, because they would like to prevent China from invading the Philippines. Yan ang isa sa mga propaganda. Meron na tayong invasion threat, you know, Chinese invasion threat theory. When you ask them, saan mo na pumayan na gusto tayong i-invade ng China? Why do you think any country would like to invade us and actually govern our country? Is our country that beautiful? Do you really think that anyone would like to govern Filipinos in the Philippines? Is it, di ba? Ngayon, ang sabi nila, no, China will invade WPS. Where on earth do you get the idea that the sea can be invaded? Invasion is always land-based. Do you really think that China needs to? China's already been fishing all over the South China Sea since wala pang Pilipinas, wala pang Amerika. Sorry. Diba? So pag tinanong mo naman, okay, but do you actually know the internationally recognized territory of the Philippines? And nobody's giving you a real answer. Ngayon sinasabi nila is pasintabi na lang sa military dyan, no? They're doing this in order to protect the territorial integrity of the Philippines. Then I challenge the DFA. Kung territorial integrity pala ng Pilipinas na in danger na, why don't you go to the United Nations and file a UN resolution katulad nung UN resolution on the territorial integrity of Ukraine? If you think that China occupying 9 features in the Kalayaan Island Group violates the territorial integrity of the Philippines, then go to the United Nations. Convince at least 91 countries to agree with you that your territorial integrity is being violated. Gaano ba kahirap yun? Di ba sabi nila, ang United States may ironclad commitment to defend our territorial integrity. Oh, let's put this to test. I will put it to test. You know, yung sinasabi nila, what's the best way for Bongbong to get out of this EDCA fiasco? Yun ang gagawin ko. I will go to the United States. I'm gonna tell United States na, well, if you have an ironclad commitment for our territorial integrity, then help us get at least 91 countries to agree that our territorial integrity is being violated by China, the People's Republic of China, by Taiwan, by Vietnam, and Malaysia. Because all of them are occupying the Kalayaan Island group, which we claim as our territory. Now, if the United States will not support us diplomatically in the United Nations to get that resolution passed, how could you be sure that the ironclad commitment is ironclad? That is the best way to put it to test because it's an action short of war. But we already put the ironclad commitment to test of the United States in 2012 over the Scarborough Shoal. Sino ba ang nagsabi kay Pinoy na mag-withdraw? Who? It's the United States. Yan ang sinabi ni Ambassador Quisha. Nakalimutan na ba natin to? This was just in 2012. Sabi ni Quisha, the US State Department, sa bureaucratic level, negotiated with China about simultaneous withdrawal. Okay, pina-withdraw ng Pinoy administration. China stayed. China denied there's an agreement. The United States hasn't confirmed until now, anong petsa na, 2023 na merong agreement. So ibig sabihin, walang agreement. So it's either it's a fantasy of Ambassador Quisha or it's the United States fooling us again just like how they fooled Aguinaldo. And now, hindi ka na nasanay, Aguinaldo was fooled. Quezon, Manuel L. Quezon was fooled before the World War II against Japan. And now you want to do it again. Hindi pa ba tayo nagsasawa? Ano pa bang gusto nating gawin? Ano pa to walang hanggang pag-ibig kay Uncle Sam? Anong basehan ng pag-ibig na ito? So what happened now? China effectively occupies the Scarborough Shoal. Umalis ka eh. So even if you put this into adjudication, China now has a fait accompli over Scarborough Shoal. You have to forget about it. Kaya nga, sa South China Sea arbitration, the late Ambassador de Rosario et al. And Carpio, do you know what they argued there? They argued there that our Filipino fishermen have traditional fishing rights over Scarborough Shoal. Sandali lang, bakit nyo kami kinukonvince na Scarborough Shoal is our territory? Pero pinaglalaban mo, traditional fishing rights. Babaw! Traditional fishing rights are rights that are privately held. It's not the right of the state. Tingnan mo si Carpio noon, sinabi niya, we cannot assert sovereign rights over Scarborough Shoal. So these are fantasies, no? Fantasies and deliberate lies.
Daragdagan ko lang yun, no? In his 58-page dissenting opinion, Associate Justice Marvic Leonen cited General Luna's conversation with Pedro Paterno, Felix Buencamino, and Emilio Aguinaldo to support his views. Teka, nawala.
Thank you.
To support his views on the EDCA ruling. This is related to what Sass said. Para kayong mga birhen na naniniwala sa pag-ibig ng isang puta. Para kayong mga birhen na naniniwala sa pag-ibig ng isang puta.
Just continue.
Sino rito ang naniniwala na ang Scarborough Shoal ay sovereign territory natin? Ng Spratly o yung Kalayaan Island Group ay sovereign territory natin, and there is such a thing as West Philippine Sea. Sino rito? Wala. Even yung kine-claim nilang 2016 arbitral ruling did not demarcate between China and the Philippines as to who owns the Scarborough Shoal. Ayo. The West Philippine Sea is an administrative order giving a name sa pantasya ni Noynoy Aquino. And the Kalayaan Island Groups, by virtue of the 2016 arbitral ruling, kung yun ay acceptable sa inyo, is no longer a regime of islands or an archipelago claimed by Ferdinand Marcos Sr., but only mere rocks. Naintindi ba niyo siya? Sabi ko, asan ang TCT ninyo? Pero, ang sinasite lang ng Amerika at yun lang ang talagang isiluksok nila sa arbitral ruling at lahat ng 500 pages na arbitral ruling, walang kwenta lahat yun. Isang phrase lang ang siniksik doon ng Amerika. That the 9-line claim of China has no legal basis.
Sarado. Sarado.
And yet, naniniwala tayo.
Sarado.
Thank you.
Sarado. Hinahanap nyo yung TCT, baka tinatago ng pamilya ni Cloma. Hindi, my question is,
Yes.
Yeah.
Pakilala muna
I
kayo.
think sumintakab na.
Tapos mamaya si Professor Ana Malindogo
Yeah,
ihahabol. May sasabihin. Sorry. May sasabihin lang si Professor Ana Malindogo via Zoom. A short comment. Thank you.
Short response to the
Mag-comment lang si
answer.
Professor.
Oo. Mag-comment lang ako quickly kasi na-explain ng mabuti ni Sass at saka ni Kaado. On my side kasi, when you talk about EDCA, I think I agree with all of them na we need to revisit EDCA, especially the expanded one. It's not really good for the country, and it's not really also true that it is a deterrent. It is not. If you really look at the situation at the moment, EDCA is actually contributing to the tension in the Indo-Pacific region or the Asia-Pacific region amid the major geopolitical rivalry and competition between the two superpowers. And we know sino yung dalawang yon. That's China and the United States. And our country is being used as a pawn in this rivalry between the two superpowers by the United States. So I think we need to a little bit more wise about how to navigate these things. And we always put our national interest at the core sa lahat ng ating mga foreign policies as a country, especially when you talk about foreign policy. And how you position yourself amid, the changing geopolitical order in the world at the moment. Hindi yung tipong naiiwan tayo sa Cold War na sitwasyon. Yung mentality kasi Cold War 2.0 yan eh. So sana naman, makita natin yung pagbabago na nangyayari sa mundo. Another thing as well, I would agree. Basahin nyo yung arbitral ruling na yan. Walang yan. Because the on clause is not competent to even resolve territorial dispute or sovereignty issue. Walang ruling on that. Ang WPS, yung West Philippine Sea na sinasabi natin, tayo lang mayroong claim nun. Wala sa international. Well, you look at international documents, even international law documents, it's not a recognized international. It is not recognized internationally. So I think when we fight for our claim, we should base it on realities on the ground and also base it on facts. Kasi kapag tayo sulong ng sulong and we're trying to, to claim something and we are trying to fight for it, pero hindi naman pala based on realities yan and not based on facts. Ano ginagawa natin? Nagluloko, parang we're fooling ourselves and it's not good. Internationally wise. Bakit? Siyempre, pagtatawanan tayo ng ibang country. And another important thing na na-mention din kanina ni Senator Tatad is strategic ambiguity. That's actually the line and the policy of the United States when you talk about the Taiwan question. I hope the current government will not follow that step, because it simply says that you are saying one thing but you're doing another thing. And I don't think other countries will trust us or will respect the Philippines kapag ganyan ang ating position at way of doing things when you talk about relating to other countries and when you talk about our foreign policy. We really have to be careful. The world is changing and it's evolving into something na pwedeng i-explain din ni Sass ngayon na tinatawag mong multipolar world. Iba na ang mundo, and dapat ang Pilipinas mag-adapt dun sa change na yon. Yun lang yung short comment ko, and thank you so much, Wilson, for recognizing me. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ana Malindog Uy, for your interesting comment, incisive. Big of
Okay.
Net 25.
I would like to address my question to Senator Kit Tatad and later on to Ma'am Sass. Sir, according to you, you cited Section 25, Article 18 of our Constitution na ang maaari lang na magpahintulot ng pagkakaroon ng foreign forces sa ating bansa through treaty. And according to you, EDCA is a mere executive agreement. So, my question is, what is your comments that in 2016, my Supreme Court decision affirming the constitutionality of EDCA?
Well,
Thank you.
that is not an isolated thing na what is unconstitutional, what is patently unconstitutional was declared constitutional by the Supreme Court. No. Nakalulungkot kasi hindi mo maasahan sa lahat ng oras na yung mga maestradong nakaupo diyan ay talagang maninindigan para sa ating saligang batas. Pero good news, may mga kababayan tayo na ngayon pa man ay naghahanda para balikan yung issue yan sa Supreme Court.
Okay.
Legal challenge.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir, Ma'am Sass, you made mention about Bush Doctrine. Can we say that the Bush Doctrine is the amended version of the 1823 James Monroe Doctrine?
Well, yung Monroe Doctrine naman, it's about the Western Hemisphere, that the United States will not allow any foreign military. Actually, it's applied for European powers nung una, pero it's extended to anyone na hindi siya ito-tolerate ng United States. So Bush Doctrine, the Preventive War Doctrine, actually, it's actually illegal. You know, in-extend niya yung notion ng defense, ng defensive war. Kasi ang accepted lang is preemptive war. Na ipe-preempt mo, no, na the threat from approaching you, pero the threat has to be imminent, na talagang nandyan na, clear and present danger. Yung preventive war, katulad nun sa Iraq, ay makakabuo sila ng capability. So bago sila makabuo ng capability, in order to launch any preeminent strike, girahin ko na. So that's the preventive war. It pushes the time horizon of launching a war far into the future probability that the other party will attack you.
Even without the approval of the United Nations as what they did in Iraq.
The United States doesn't care about the United Nations. It doesn't care.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't care even about the ICC. You know, it's not a signatory to the ICC. It's not a treaty party to the ICC. But what did the United States do? It passed a law giving the US president a power to invade the Netherlands if in case there is any American citizen that would be tried in the ICC in The Hague. It's called the Hague Invasion Act. So, this is happening in our time, huh? That the United States has been given a blanket authority to invade another country. So, kaya nga ito sinasabi nila na itong sinasabi ni President Bongbong Marcos na the platforms will not be used for offensive military action. The question is, who is the commander-in-chief of the US military? Who? The President of the United States.
Same.
Who is the commander of the President of the United States? And if ever, the United States didn't follow whatever agreement that they would have, where will you sue the United States? Under EDCA, you cannot sue the US military without its consent. Effectively saying na we can violate this.
Yes, ma'am. One last point on my part. Anybody na sasagot?
Thank you.
What is your reaction doon sa resulta ng recent working visit of the President in the United States na nakipag-meet siya sa mga official ng Pentagon at nabuo yung tinatawag na New Defense Guideline? Mas lalong pinalawak nila. Pati yung issue about South China Sea, pwede nang pakialaman ng US.
Yes.
Well, it just is gonna be short, no? You know, these are all rituals and just giving a sense of legitimacy to whatever the United States would like to do. You know, you cannot you cannot stop the United States, okay, from launching a war. No one has effectively done that. That's why, you know, African nations say na China must not lose to the United States, because they know that if China lose to the United States, Africa, you know, will be exploited by the United States just like how they did it before. So these new guidelines or whatever, don't be confused about these things. The question is simple. Who commands the US military in the Philippines? It's not Bongbong Marcos, no? Kaya nga fantasy land that you can command the US military. Have we already forgotten what happened in Tubataha Reef? Na yung US Navy na run aground. Yes, anong ginawa nung may umakyat na mga ano ang tawag natin, Coast Guard doon sa US Navy? Tinutukan sila ng US Navy. This is in our territory. This is not in the Kalayaan Island Group, but in our territory. So let's forget this fantasy that you can bind the United States. The only way that you can avoid the United States from using our territory is for them to leave completely.
So meaning to say, at the end of the
Thank
day, Americans believe, or they are still insisting that what America wants, America gets.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have time for raffle of 3 books.
Wilson, sandali lang.
Yes, si Senator Kit Tatad, may short comment.
Meron lang akong hingin kay Sass
Yes,
for our education here. No?
yes.
Please distinguish for us yung preemptive war and preventive war. Kung alin ang yan.
Oo. Yes.
Wala kasing blackboard you know,
Yes.
teacher.
Oo, si Professor.
So ang preemptive war kasi, you know, the threat is there. It's imminent. Na, they were about to attack you. So before they could attack you, you preempt it by launching a war, no, to disable them or whatever. Ang preventive war, you prevent them from ever even having the ability to attack you. So you actually launches a war based on a remote probability, more remote probability than a preemptive strike. Just like what happened to Iraq.
Thank you. Si Senator, isang last question. Yes, kay Jason, isang last question. Kasi we have raffle. Yes. Yes, short answers.
Regarding lang dun sa mga inilabas na statement ng mga few senators about
yes.
sa NGCP na 40% nun ay owned by the Chinese corporation. Ito po ang sinabi ni Senator Hontiveros, China, through their 40% control of NGCP, could figuratively flick a switch at patayan tayo ng kuryente. and ehersito, quote unquote, hindi po to sa akin ha, it can paralyze the whole country. It will have an enormous effect on our economy and national security. I am wary because they're becoming hostile and aggressive. And lastly po kay Senator Tulfo, quote unquote, sa madaling salita, magagawa ng Chinese shareholders ang lahat ng kanilang gusto pagdating sa pamamalakad ng NGCP. Ito ang dahilan kung bakit ngayon ay nagkagewang-gewang ang ating energy situation. Any comments po?
The energy situation around the world is very serious, no? Hindi lang po dito sa atin yan. At hindi maganda na China lahat ang may kasalanan nito. Maybe hingin natin sa ating mga butihing senador to rethink their statements. Naniniwala ba sila sa kanilang sinasabi?
I think our TikTok here is NGCP, no? So if you notice what they're doing with TikTok in the United States, I think that's what we're doing with NGCP. Ngayon dito with all these senators. Three things. One, check the oligarchs who funded the campaigns of those senators.
Aha.
One. Number two, nag-release na yung NGCP na para mapatay mo yung transmission, you have to actually go there and patay mo yung switch, isa-isa nung. Number three, alam naman natin kung bakit nagka-leche-leche ang kuryente dito. Walang proper competition. So itong mga oligarchs na ito, they are looking for an external enemy para mapagtakpan ang kanilang ginagawa. Sino ba may-ari ng Meralco? Who owns Meralco? Tapos ngayon na mga papasok na sa energy, Aboitiz. Ayala, I don't care if you're gonna kill me because of this, no? Ayala, Aboitiz, Pangilinan. Who are this? These are the friends of the family of the president. Ano? Magpapulahan pa ba tayo? And di ba nagtayo si Bongbong ng private, consultation of sinong leader? Aboitiz. Sino rin nakakakuha ng Sila rin. Let's not fool ourselves. The problem of electricity in our country is brought by our elite. Now they are looking for an external enemy so that they would not be blamed.
The very hearing in Congress,
Thank you.
exonerated NGCP na wala silang kinalaman dito sa mga spikes. And yet, iba lumalabas sa balita. Anyway,
Thank you.
ito bang,
Kailangan na natin
ito lang, I really have to say this.
Sorry.
Ito bang binanggit mong
Yes,
pangalan na senador? Nagkaroon ba ito ng congenital disorder?
Ay, sandali lang ha.
A history of brain injury, an accident involving her head? Na-abuse ba siya ng parents niya, boyfriend niya o spouse? Nagmarihuana ba ito o nag-cocaine? Or did she just have an unhappy childhood? Perhaps a
Thank you.
victim of bullying at St. Scholastica.
Thank you very much.
Let me
Thank you
respond.
very much. May comment dito from Davao. I have to read it from Mr. Peter Labinya. Sabi ni Peter Labinya from Davao City, Pinoy talaga mahilig mga bitbahay. We should leave China alone to deal with its own province of Taiwan as domestic issue. Their peaceful reunification will be good for the whole of Asia region. The U.S. should stop meddling in our neighborhood. Comment from Mr. Peter Labinya, a civic leader from Davao City and also a leader of APCO, APCU. By the way, we have to get 3 raffles. And
Yeah,
may mamarites ako sa inyo. Sabi ni Professor Ana Malindog-Uy kanina, minessage siya sa akin, the winners, pwede na ba i-mention yung winners?
Mamaya,
Of the
sandali,
ACPh
mag-comment muna
award?
ako.
Pwede kayo mag-mention sino ang mga nanalo na award sa June? Pwede mo na announce.
Wilson, comment lang ako sa electricity issue. Okay, mag-comment ako, Wilson, quickly about electricity issue, no?
Welcome. Short
very-
comment.
Yeah, very quick, very quick. Nabasa ko yan na mga statement coming from our senators, no? Nakakatawa, to be honest, no? Why would you blame an external another country for the tawag nito, inefficiency and effectiveness of our country and even of the current administration? On when you talk about energy crisis, bakit sila ang biniblame mo kung nasamantala problema ng bansa yan? And one thing that you have to remember, 40% is not even a majority. When you talk about corporate corporate setting, no? Sa pangalawa, ano yung basis ng claims ng mga senador na talagang tangible, na masasabi mo na may kasalanan ng China diyan sa energy crisis ng bansa? Pangatlo, accountability. Ang accountability kung bakit mayroon kang energy crisis, hindi nasa China, nasa current administration yan. Bakit maghahanap ng accountability and transparency sa ibang bansa when in fact it is the current government that needs to answer this question? Lahat na lang ba i-blame mo sa China? Pati nga siguro yung airport, mga nangyayaring mga nangyayaring hindi maganda sa airport minsan nagsa-shutdown ng airport, affected lahat ng flights, biniblame din nila sa China. Wala na ba tayong ibang gagawin kundi i-blame ang China for our own inefficiencies as a country and even the current government? Nakakahiya naman yan sa ibang bansa, no? Please lang. Let's be more let's be more intelligent enough when it comes to these things, mga kababayan. Huwag nating i-accept yan at face value. Mag-isip-isip tayo kung tama nga ba ang mga sinasabi ng mga ganitong senador pagdating sa mga issues ng bansa. Si Sass, tignan niyo muna kung sino ba talagang may kasalanan sa energy crisis ng bansa. Yun lang.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Professor Ana Malindog. Now we have to have a raffle of 3 books. Book of Senator Tatad, yung autobiography niya, napakaganda. Book of Ambassador Rigoberto Tiglao, and book of Ado Paglinawan.
So we
have 250 listeners via Zoom now, and many more via Facebook Live.
Yeah. Well, not all registered, no? Not all registered. So
yes,
we have around 50 stubs here.
Yes.
Those who registered.
So registered for the raffle.
Sa mga susunod na media forum, please, everybody register.
Yes,
YouTube and Facebook.
Yes, we should put it in the
Okay.
poster next time.
The reason
The
I
raffle.
asked Sasot to draw for
Yes.
the book of Kit, it's not likely naman that magandang si Kit ang mag-draw.
Yes, of course. Kasi
So,
libro ni Senator Tatad ang
The winner
ipamimigay.
is Nilo Odiaman,
Nilo, halika.
Business and Film.
Yes, Business
nandito.
Mirror and Filipino Mirror. Ikaw kukuha ng libro kay Senator, kukuha ka ng picture. Now,
Doon ka sa tabi.
Nilo, N-I-L-O, Nilo, Odiaman. Wow, maswerte talaga. Magandang libro yan, ang kapal na libro, ang ganda. Oo. Nilo, N-I-L-O. Today is May 17, 2023. A book from Senator Tatad. Yes. Baka gusto mo umakyat dito sa tabi. Diyan ka lang? Sige, iapot sa'yo ha. Yes. Oo. Yun, na. Yes, iabot na. Lapit ka muna. Photo op. Yes. Rika, tabi kayong dalawa. Hawak yung libro. Smile for the camera.
Okay, ito naman
Congrats, Nilo. Next.
Aklat ni Bobby Tiglao,
Yes,
Demerel.
libro ni Ambassador Bobby Tiglao, who by the way is a winner of APPCU this year now.
Okay.
May isang award daw.
Nolet Flores via Zoom. Nolet Flores.
Yes, via Zoom, watching us. Anong full name?
Nolet Flores.
Mr. Nolet Flores. N-O-L-E-T. Congratulations, Mr. Nolet Flores. You can claim here sa Kamuning Bakery or we could send to your home. Number 3 winner. Yes, the book of Ado Paglinawan. no vaccine for a virus called racism. Yes, si Ambassador Kit Tatad will draw the winner. Book raffle. Yes. Ay, oo nga. Si former Secretary and former Senator Kit Tatad. Art Torres. Mr. Art Torres, congratulations. Andito ba si Art Torres? Yes, congratulations. Lapit ka. Iabot na yung libro sa iyo. Yes, libro. Yan. Autograph. Art Torres. ART. Congratulations, Art. Yes. Thank you to everyone and to all the media. Mayroon tayong media forum bukas sa Laksen Hotel, 10 a.m. With the FFCCCII President and the Huangshan City delegation from East China. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. You are all invited. Thank you to Senator, once again to Senator Kit Tatad, to Miss Sasot, Miss Sass, Rogando Sasot, Mr. Ado Paglinawan, and Professor Ana Malindog Uy. Can we have short closing statement for everyone? Let us start muna with Ado, then Sass, and very short kasi we have to have lunch now. Thank you. Ado Paglinawan.
Test. Ano ang problema ng Pilipinas at China na hindi pwedeng iresolba ng bilateral negotiations or diplomasya? Ano ang problema ng Pilipinas sa Taiwan? Anong problema ng Taiwan at China? Wala. At nagkakaroon lamang dahil sa mga pag-uudyok na mga tinatawag kong geopolitical karaoke. Ano ang clear and present danger? Ang clear and present danger ay pinapasok natin at hindi lamang sa ating kubeta, kundi pati sa komedor, salas, bedroom. Ang bansang nagtatag in the past 20 years ng gera sa buong mundo to the tune of $6.4 trillion. We are sleeping with the enemy. And to quote Sass Sasot, war starts where the United States has military presence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ado Paglinawan. Next pala, Professor Ana Malindog Uy for her closing statement. Then later si Sass.
Okay.
Professor.
Okay, can I be heard now? Okay. Thank you so much to
Clear?
everyone,
Yes.
especially to our media friends and to everyone na nag-attend sa media forum na to, especially as well to our panel of speakers. First thing for me is, tatlo lang yung points na gusto kong i-raise, and I hope the government is also listening. No? First and foremost, revisit EDCA, especially the expanded EDCA, and try to respect the Constitution. No? Whatever is in the Constitution, I think we need to take the essence. Hindi yung mga technicalities na mga lawyers, technicalities naglalaro. Tignan natin yung essence ng Constitution, especially yung specific provision na nagsasabi na hindi tayo dapat, wala tayo dapang foreign military bases in the country and even troops on the ground. And if we will have that, we have to go through a treaty. So I think that is one important thing. The other one, I think, is the Taiwan question. Again, let's not play with fire. Again, the Taiwan question is a non-negotiable to China. You don't cross the red flag. Red flag yan eh. And it's an internal affairs of China. And in international relations, especially after the Second World War, basic courtesy and basic how do you call that setting in international relation is non-interference in the internal affairs of any country for that matter. And yun dapat nating tignan. And if we want, and if we say that we respect and adhere to one China policy, then we need to be true to it. And I think government official, masenador man yan, mapresidente man yan, makongresista man yan, mabarangay captain man yan, siguro naman dapat natin bigyan ng halaga yung sinasabi natin. Kasi bakit? Pagdating sa international community, may danger yan sa Pilipinas. Hindi na tayo pagkakatiwalaan because we're trying to have that strategic ambiguity na ginagawa ng United States. Saying one thing, doing another. It will impact our international relation with any countries for that matter. Kasi tinitignan din nila kung paano tayo lumalaro sa international arena. At sana maging ganun, maging tayo wise and prudent in all of these things. And the last one is the South China Sea. Again, the South China Sea dispute is not like a simple matter. It's very complicated and complex. Iba-iba ang claim ng mga claimant states sa South China Sea. The arbitral ruling is not something na kailangan mong palaging gamiting propaganda ng mga pro-United States na mga tao sa Pilipinas. We need to read the ruling and understand it deeply. Hindi yung tipong narinig mo lang, ganito yung sinabi, yun na yun. And one more thing, wala tayong sovereignty dyan. We have sovereign rights in our economic zone, dyan sa South China Sea, but not sovereignty. Magkaiba yun. At basahin nyo rin yung book ni Ambassador Tiglao at even the book of Sass. In-explain ni Sass dyan, may libro si Sass eh. Sass, you can actually promote your book. And last thing, let's be open-minded about these things. Again, the world is changing. We are not anymore in a unipolar world. We are moving to a multipolar world. Marami ng players and BRICS is one of that. And if you look at the Middle East, tingnan nyo yung gano'n ng mga countries in the Middle East, and you can learn from how the Middle Eastern countries are moving and positioning themselves in when you talk about global affairs, and even other countries in ASEAN. And I hope the Philippines will learn from these countries as well. At doon natin makikita kung paano ba natin ipoposition ang sarili natin as a country. We need to be wise and prudent. America is not anymore America of the 50 years. Things are changing. You have a contending power and it's our neighbor na kung saan dinidemonize natin lagi dito sa Pilipinas. I hope we really have to be wise this time around and learn from our own history. Maraming history at marami tayong experience with America na I think we need to factor in how we relate to them and how we position ourselves as a country. So that's my closing statement. Thank you so much, Wilson, as well.
Thank you very much, Professor Ana Malindog. Next, we'd like to invite Ms. Sass Rogando Sasot for her closing statement.
Well, if your diplomatic solution failed, the solution is not the military solution, and that is to replace your diplomats. Baka kaya nga hindi siya nagkakaroon ng magandang solusyon dahil problema yung diplomats mo. Aanga-anga. And true enough, they are. Do you remember kung sino yung nirecommend dati ni Pinoy na maging ambassador sa China ng Pilipinas? And who was reappointed 3 times dahil pinag-aaral pa siya ng mga senador about what diplomacy is. Can you imagine? This was during Pinoy's time. So that's number 1 point. If your diplomacy is failing, replace your diplomats and see whether it would matter. Number 2, do not let the United States dictate your foreign policy. Kahit ayaw man nilang aminin o hindi, DFA, you are an extension of the US State Department. Maraming diplomats nagsasabi sa akin yan no? Yeah, you are. Stop looking at the world through the eyes of the United States. And this brings me to the point number 3. Kahit anong gawin ninyo, you will never ever be part of the West. You will never ever be a Westerner. You are Asian. So start learning Asian history. And kung bakit nagka-leche-leche dito sa Asian region. Sino bang may kasalanan? Diba? Why so many Asians died, killed, how many Asian communities got exploited, etc. Start learning your Asian history. Stop watching American news. Read history books. And maybe, just maybe, you would open your mind. And this also applies to our politicians dahil ang dami-daming politicians dyan, lalo na mga senador, kung ano pinagsasabi. And lastly, well, okay lang naman if they really think na we should go to war with China, like a lot of, public officials seem bent na, yeah, we have to go to war. Yeah, let's agree na if we go to war, dapat unahin yung mga anak ng mga senador. Anak ng presidente. Anak ng congressman. Because whether you like it or not, it is the poor who would be sent first to die for the war that the rich actually planned. For what? For their own pocket. War is a business. If you remove profit from war, nobody would go to war. As simple as that. Kaya nga, to conclude, the late Jimmy Carter, US President Jimmy Carter, no presidente si Trump, remember Trump launched a trade war. So the late President Jimmy Carter, US President Jimmy Carter, talked to Trump at ito yung exacting sinabi niya. China is ahead of us because it has not wasted a single penny on war. And, marami nagsasabi sa amin, kaya kami nagsasalita ng ganito dahil pro-China kami or whatever. Let's say, for the sake of argument, na totoo nga yun. Let me just remind you that yung mga pro-US, the United States has spent $6.4 trillion since 2000 war for its wars in Middle East, in Asia. 6.4 trillion. Do you know how much is that? I don't even know if you know how to count up to 1 billion. And you know how much is the student debt in the United States? About 2 trillion ata. About 2 trillion. So what kind of nation put its students to debt while it spend 6.4 trillion to kill Arabs, Blacks, Asians? It is your moral conscience that you need to examine why you are supporting a country who killed 1 million Iraqis on the pretext that there are weapons of mass destruction, and then when they found out that there's none, oops, sorry, our mistake. Maybe you cannot examine your conscience because your pocket is full of coins from the United States. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sass Rogando Sasot, for crash course on geopolitics and history today. Next, we'd like to invite, last but not the least, former senator, former youngest cabinet minister, and now distinguished analyst, Senator Kit Tatad, for closing statement.
Well, maraming salamat, Wilson. Salamat po kina Kambentong at sa lahat ng ating naging kasama ngayong umaga. Salamat sa media at nandito pa kayo. Bibihira na ngayon ang ina-assist ng media, lalo-lalo na kung totoo ang pinag-uusapan. Okay. Para sa akin, I'm about the oldest in this group today, no? So I have the benefit of many years in public and private life. Huwag tayong mapapagod sa pag-iisip at pag-aaral sa ating kalagayan. Wala po tayong ibang pinakamagaling na kaibigan kundi tayo mismo. Hindi tayo maaaring umasa sa Amerikano at sa ibang lahi. Umasa po tayo sa ating sarili. Pinag-uusapan po rito, nag-umpisa tayo sa independent foreign policy ng Pilipinas. Saan po natin matatagpuan yan? Nasa provision po ng Constitution yan. Hindi lang po yan mando ng isang presidente o ng Act of Congress. Nasa saligang batas natin, sinasabi that we shall pursue an independent foreign policy anchored on national sovereignty, national territory, national interest, and the principle of self-determination. No? Nawala na yata yung self-determination sa lengguwahe ng UN. No? During the period of decolonization, yun ang pinaka-importanting prinsipyo na karapatan ng a certain group of people na mag-decide kung ano ang magiging katayuan nila. So, yun po ang wag nating kalilimutan. Hindi po dapat Amerikano o Chino, Pranses, Aleman o kung sino man ang magdidesisyon para sa atin, kundi tayo mismo. Simple. No complication. Pag yun hindi natin makalilimutan, magwawagi pa tayo kahit na anong problema natin. So, until the next forum, Wilson, maraming salamat sa iyo. Congratulations. Mabuhay ka.
Once again, maraming salamat kay Senator Kit Tatad, kay Ms. Sass Rogando Sasot, Mr. Ado Paglinawan, Professor Ana Malindog-Uy, also to Mr. Herman Laurel of the Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies. Thank you to all the media for attending here sa Pandesal Forum sa Kamuning Bakery Cafe. We have a tradition here. We have to have a photo op with our pandesal. Sabi sa Biblia, di ba, kung may away or galit ka sa ibang tao, pag hinagisan ka ng bato or bomba, hagisan natin ng pandesal for kapayapaan, peace. O nga, dapat peace. So mag-picture tayo with pandesal, Mr. Ado. Picture tayo with pandesal and Miss Sass. Photo op. May palaman ako pahabol. Thank you once again to our brilliant speakers for telling the truth, unvarnished truth, analyzing geopolitics and national issues, and giving us literally a crash course on history, politics, diplomacy, geopolitics. Pakihawak natin lahat. Smile tayo, Mr. Ado. Lahat tayo may pandesal and lunch will be served. Thank you to everyone. Bukas ho sa Thursday 10 a.m. sa Laccent Hotel, we have an event there with the Huangshan City delegation and the President of Federation of Filipino Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Thank you for Mr. George Cham of the Gopan also here. He's a board member of FFCCCII. The two of us, we have to leave now to go to airport to fetch Huangshan City delegation. Imamaritas ko lang sa inyo, they are here not for military exercises or lobbying for military bases. They are here to promote tourism and economic cooperation. And on Friday, the Huangshan City delegation from East China will sign a sister city agreement with Lawag City, promoting economic and tourism and cultural exchanges and cooperation. Yun kunikwento ni Senator Tatad, Ms. Sasot, and Professor Ana Malindog-Uy and Mr. Ado Paglinawan. Ang focus is economic cooperation and tourism exchanges. Thank you to everyone for attending this enlightening forum. Ang galing magsalita nila Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you.